Welcome to Jacket Jockeys with Justin.
And me, Pit Girl.
We're
I've probably made that joke before.
oh yeah,
Don't you
you
think?
did. You said I remember you said it's me, Nugget.
Nuggets. Oh, Nugget. I can't wait until Nugget shows up.
Yeah, it's coming up actually. It's not too far away, as I
Yeah.
recall. So yeah, we're back with our season one retrospective. We're going to be talking about the latter half of season one, covering episodes 6 through 10, um,
It's a doozy.
including many memorable events.
Yeah, it's interesting. So if you listened to so we started watching episode 6 approximately 35 seconds after we finished recording the podcast we did about the first half of the season. And
True.
I kept being like, "Oh yeah, I should have held off on that because this is where that really gets to the next level." So yeah, the second half of the season, as is often the case with action packed and mysterious, plot heavy shows, the second half really ratchets up a lot of this stuff. So we've laid this really solid foundation for all the characters in the first half, and then right out the bat, episode 6, Saints, is Lottie centric. We finally get
Ah,
to go
yes.
deeper with Lottie. So
Yes, it's true. It's true. And it's part of the game that the first season is playing that it kind of slowly builds up Lottie. I,
mhm.
I I remember when we did the first rewatch and I hadn't seen season 2, but I knew where the ending of season 1 was gonna be.
The Lottie Matthews, who
Yeah,
the fuck is
exactly.
Lottie
She's the one who
funeral.
drained Travis's bank account.
Yeah, I remember us arguing vehemently about how to interpret the line, or how much to interpret from that final line of the
Hmm.
season with the phone call from Susie the banker, who
Yeah,
fucking Natalie is blackmailing into
yeah.
breaking the law, and yeah, looking up banking information. But I definitely did not have any inkling where they were going to go. I didn't make if I noticed all the lilac colored, sorry, it's not like heliotrope
Thank you.
colored
Thank you. It's very
clothing. I
important.
certainly didn't make anything of it. But yeah, Lottie, prior to that moment, we've gotten no indication about any survivors other than the ones we are spending a lot of time
Yeah,
with.
I mean, there's that vague line that Jessica Roberts has about someone being off the grid or whatever,
Mhm.
and we know Travis survived at least until he died,
Until he dies,
but
yeah.
like he survived the original
Uh-huh.
thing, right? He was rescued clearly. Um, but yeah, anybody like they don't talk about, and of course, in a way that's contrived because they must know that Lottie survived. They must know that Van survived, right?
Mhm.
It's just they have to not tell us that because yeah,
Yeah.
they don't want the audience to know.
Yeah.
Even though the character, just like Jeff knows like all this shit from the journals that
Right.
they don't want us to know he knows, so he doesn't really act like he knows a lot of the time.
Yeah. Well, and there's that line, Jessica Roberts, when she's trying to manipulate, um oh my God. I just totally
Misty?
Misty, yeah, sorry. I was just like my mind went blank of all words for the moment. When she's trying to manipulate Misty, she mentions that the three of them, meaning, Shauna, Ty, and Natalie, have
Yeah,
been in continuous communication, or they've been
yeah,
in regular communication this whole time.
yeah,
Um, so I mean, it sort of makes sense that they would come out of an experience like that. All the survivors would come out of an experience like that with kind of a varying level of interest in being in touch with the others.
yeah.
But that those three have this bond. And of course, there's still, as we discussed last time, there's still a lot more in the wilderness experiences that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah,
Um,
quite a bit. Yeah.
that so when we hear these lines like in the episode when they're kind of like waiting to try to catch the
Track the
blackmailer,
blackmailer. Yeah.
when they're like, if it wasn't for Natalie, we'd all be
Hmm.
dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, well,
Yeah.
there's a couple ways we could interpret that based on what we have seen. She was their primary food getter
Yeah.
for the first season, but is there something else meant by that? Will we understand that in a different way by the
Yeah.
time the show is over?
And I don't necessarily believe that when they said that, they knew for sure that they were gonna make her the Antler Queen at the end of season two. I'm not convinced, but I think it's a thing you can kind of retcon that that's part of what they were alluding to. Like it's vague enough that it works for that.
Yeah, I often think about that when I'm watching mystery oriented TV shows. When I hear a line like that, like, are they just making that broad enough that it's a line you can do a lot with down
Yeah,
the
yeah,
road, but also if you don't do anything specific with it, it won't stick out.
yeah, yeah.
I was driving earlier today, and I just doesn't matter, but it just popped into my head because I knew we were gonna be doing this today, that I have not felt this excited about a show since it that like you there are shows that you like, there are shows that you love, and then there are shows that are just so captivating. And the way that I feel about the show is similar to how I felt about Battlestar Galactica, where I
Hmm.
never wanted to stop watching it. I always wanted more. But the more that you love it, the more the higher the potential for disappointment.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But I
Def-
mean, it hasn't disappointed me yet.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I was
no,
just thinking about how much I
no.
fucking I don't know, that's not substantive or relevant to any listeners, but yeah,
Definitely
I
like
love this
some
show.
smaller disappointments, but
Yeah.
it hasn't crossed that line that that Dexter line or whatever the shows do sometimes, where they go from a show that I think is good to a show I think is just bad.
Yeah, but I think
You
it
know,
does just such a great job with the personal stuff.
yeah,
I feel really invested in the personal stuff. The
yeah,
mystery stuff, which is always the place that's easiest to disappoint.
yes,
And the
yes.
kind of the action stuff. It's not too action heavy. Um,
No, not at all.
but there is like intrigue and yeah.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. It's very much yeah, it's very much about playing with the viewer's expectations and sort of misleading the viewer in various ways. I mean, we see a lot of that. The stuff that happens in the final episode of this first season, like a lot of that stuff is really misleading.
Yeah.
And the lead into it was also misleading. It's
Yeah.
like every step of the way they're sort of like swerving and strange, and they do that in season two as well.
Yeah. I
Like
mean, I think I know what you're talking about, but do you want to provide some examples of what you mean?
some examples. Yeah. Well, I guess I was gonna try to wait, but
Okay, well, yeah, go ahead and wait then, if
uh
that's what you want.
just because yeah, that's from the end, and I was gonna try to like do it roughly in order, but I promise
Yeah,
I'll try to put a pin in that in my head and remember
I'm sure you will because
to
you have made some comments griping about it, so I'm sure you won't forget.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't well, there is one thing I have a gripe about. Well, it's more than one thing I have a gripe about, but the stuff I have in mind for this topic isn't really gripes, it's just an observation
Sure. Okay.
about the way they showed it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I am also a huge fan of the show. I think season 2 helped to clarify to me like how to think about it, because I think season 1 is a bit more, it doesn't put as many of its cards on the table, if you will. Speaking of cards,
Oh God. Here we go. Who's ready for a nitpick?
sorry, I wasn't even gonna bring this up, but it's just a funny thing I
Your
rewatched.
nature took over.
It's like there's this thing in Lost. Sorry to go roundabout here, but there's this thing in Lost where there's this episode of season 1 where this like random red shirt drowning, and like Jack runs over and Charlie's there, and he's like, I don't swim, and then like
Oh.
Jack dives in, and it's all I don't swim, you know, and then at the end of season 3, and when he has his greatest hit, they tell us he's a swimming champion, and he does this like heroic like deep dive thing, you know, like it's like, and everyone talked about it at the time,
Uh,
you know, and it's like they come up with some bullshit that, you know, if you talk to fans, they'll defend anything and they'll say some shit like, well, he said I don't swim, not that I can't swim.
oh
And
God,
it's
what?
like
Don't give me that.
they will say that. They will say that. I mean, it is unbelievable. Like people who want to defend every single
Yeah,
thing, and it's just like, let it go. Like sometimes they fuck up. Like, come on,
yeah.
get real. So anyway, I feel like this might be that. But there's like a brief discussion of a deck of cards out in the wilderness, missing all the queens. And I just think that's weird. Now, if there's a scene later where they find the queens,
Yeah, I'm gonna say they find the queens, and that inspires the idea. Yeah, yeah. There, as you might remember, the queens are plot relevant.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
one of them in
later on.
particular.
So anyway,
No, yeah,
um,
yeah, it's a big deal in season 2. It's
so
just, it's like season 1, it didn't stand out because it didn't mean anything. But in season 2, it's like, oh,
yeah,
that deck of cards becomes a big deal later
yeah,
on. So, like,
they can't go back and redact that
yeah,
line.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. No, I understand. I mean, that's why I brought up the last thing because, like, I don't actually care, but it's like, yeah, that's just a thing. You go over time, you write a line in the moment, and you don't know what you might want to do later.
yeah.
And when you want to do something later, you go, well, can I
But
live
this
with
is why
this?
you need one obsessive fan who you have on retainer, and you just send him all your scripts. He's got like an NDA,
Yeah.
and every episode, like, is there anything in here? Actually, you
Claude
know,
and I used to say on Lost Lowdown, like they should just hire us to like
yeah,
help them out because like we could fix like all these problems really easily.
yeah.
Like they could get around this if they wanted to.
Bet that, yeah. Well, anyway,
You know, they could have layered in because it was an arc for Charlie in season 3 that he was going to end up dying at the end. They could have layered in he like decides to take swimming lessons and have him, you know,
yeah,
they
he
could
does have plenty of time to learn how to swim
yeah,
in
they
the
could have
Yellowjackets.
Desmond give
So
him the lessons if they want to have Desmond and Charlie time because like that bond is like part of the thing happening, and they could tie that into Desmond seeing him dying. Like it could have worked, you know. They just
So
like
thank you for joining us on the Lost Rewrites podcast, where we rewrite plot holes on
I
Lost.
was just validating your point that
Yeah,
like the idea of like hiring some obsessive fan
yeah,
because I agree like I think one of the things that's interesting about like writers like professional writers is like the way they think about their stuff is actually quite different from the way fans do
sure.
at least in my experience like because you can tell when they talk like their focus usually is more on like the internal struggles of the characters and they're thinking about making those really potent and like that's where like a lot of their
And
energy
fans are focused on finding every little
yeah
error and picking at it like a
yeah
scab.
exactly but I think that can make them overlook some of those details because
Yeah.
that's not what's at the forefront of what they're thinking
Yeah.
about, you know.
Well, I do think that, well, we've discussed this before, but when it serves a fan to harp on that kind of thing versus when it just kind of is like, come on. That's obviously not the point. If you want to
Yeah,
enjoy the show. If
yeah.
you.
I mean, that's my deal with that stuff. It's like I don't care really until it actually does start to affect my enjoyment.
Right,
You
right. And
know?
it's not, I'm not trying to compare it to like professional cultural criticism, which is, that's a field. Um, but, there is a difference between like, and I don't like this continuity error. Oh, isn't that stupid? Aren't I so clever that I noticed this continuity error? Versus like an intelligent analysis, which is not what I promise or intend to
Yeah.
attempt.
Or, inconsistent character development, for example.
Right.
Right? So like that's a thing that I think is like more to the point of
Yeah,
what
yeah,
matters,
yeah.
And I do have a potential comment about that, although I have to be honest, I don't 100% remember season two that well. So I'll
Yeah.
have to wait until we get to season two to see if I'm right about this. But I have this vague memory of something along those lines.
Yeah, so that is something in the middle, and I do agree with you because it's like you have to make me you have to make me come along on this journey. And I do often it really does bother me when characters all of a sudden behave in a way that is really not synced up with how they've behaved previously, and there's
Yeah.
no explanation for that, or they just like without any explanation start to interpret things differently, which I think is more the thing that you're getting at.
Yes.
um
Pretty much. Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I agree, you should respect your audience enough to make that work.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So
Yeah.
should we start on this first episode?
Oh, talk about stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
this first episode,
Saints.
mhm.
Episode 6, the Lottie Centric one, right? You were talking about that a second
Yeah.
ago.
Well, speaking of Lost, it features some of what you like to refer to as Lindelofing, I
Oh
would say.
God, so much Lindelof. I mean, Lottie's whole story is one big Lindelof
Ball of Lindelof.
ball of enigmas. I don't know. It's like it's really dancing around that idea of, like where's the line between someone with real supernatural or psychic powers and just a
Yeah.
coincidence,
Yeah.
or luck or whatever. And to this day, the show has not definitively come down on that. But I do feel like season two leans more into, it was coincidences. At least that's how it feels to me.
It's a tough one. So a central question of the show is, what if any supernatural power does the wilderness have? Does the cabin have? Did the cabin guy have?
Yeah.
Does that symbol have? This idea of we brought it back with us, like, is there an it?
Yeah, yeah.
We see in the pilot that Lottie is pilot or the second episode, either one, that there's some medication that Lottie needs to
Yeah.
take, and she's gonna run low on it.
Yeah. They
And
didn't pack enough for however long they're out there.
yeah, and there are other visions. Now, to what extent they are caused by the I mean, besides Lottie, like Lottie's not the only one who sees things that are not that probably shouldn't be there.
That's true.
Um,
That's true.
but then yeah, so in the flashback in this episode, uh little kid Lottie, little kid Lottie screams,
Little laddie.
and her parents, like, cars at a red light, she screams, her parents look back. As a result, they don't go when the light turns green. A different car does and gets smashed by a semi, right?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
did she
Yeah.
did she presage
Predict
that?
it.
Did she
Yeah.
predict
We
it?
overhear them arguing about it as
Yeah.
well later on.
Yeah. And so then, in the wilderness, we see her having some other hallucinations. So,
Mm-hmm.
question marks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to talk about that actually, just a little bit. Yeah, yeah. So this is the one where Laura Lee baptizes her as well, which, like,
Right, because she is like, I'm having visions.
yeah,
There's one other person here who has this kind of
who
spirituality.
could actually like accept that idea?
Yeah, and of course we later find out, and this is a different episode, and I'm like, whoa, I forgot about this. That Laura Lee a few years earlier dives into the shallow end of a pool and cracks her skull on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, are they so she's already at like a Christian, it's already a Christian summer camp. So
Yeah.
they're not suggesting that her faith comes from cranial trauma.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's like, what are we to believe about that?
It's kind of ambiguous, but I do feel like we're supposed to believe that, like, her feeling like she was maybe miraculously
That she's
saved or
like
something is
influences
like
her
part of
sense of like
it.
a purpose. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
okay, so it gives her this like almost like a near death
yeah.
experience, kind of.
I mean, I don't know that for sure. That was just my
Yeah,
reading
yeah.
on it.
It's just I thought about it in relation to this dynamic between Lottie and Laura Lee starting in this episode. And then of course by the end of the season, we're starting to and Laura Lee is dead,
Yeah,
we're starting to get this dynamic between Lottie, Van, and Mari
yeah,
as like her first followers, like
yeah,
the kernel of the cult
yeah,
idea.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Which becomes
because I
more of
mean,
a
it
thing in
kind of
season two.
feels like she is having visions. I mean, she's having vision. The vision
She
she
is
has,
having visions. I
she's
think
having
that's
visions. Right. The
undeniable.
significance of the visions. I mean, the fact that she gives that unburned bone, sorry, I'm jumping around, but it's thematically
Oh, the
connected.
bone
She
talisman. Yeah,
gives the bone talisman to Van,
yeah,
but then Van told Thaisa about it. So
yep,
when when the bad one has taken it,
yeah,
we can't really interpret meaning to that. Like other than maybe the bad one was like took it, do you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And then, but she did say, like, I saw a river running red, or running with blood, and I saw smoke. I saw
yeah,
you and smoke,
yeah.
and it's, you know,
Some of that comes true in a way, for
some
sure.
that comes true in a way.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's definitely, I definitely think they are trying to get you to think about, did she predict this stuff? Should we accept this as proof?
I mean, that thing with the bear is pretty
The
freaky.
thing with the bear is totally freaky. And I after
Also, that bear, you cannot don't ever try to kill if you're gonna kill a bear, don't do it like that. That's not enough.
it did seem like not that much to fell the bear. But anyway, yeah, it's a weird moment. And I definitely felt differently from season one than from season two. Because like season two sort of reframes Lottie in a lot of ways, and I'm I feel like it's this thing where, not to bring up Lost again, but I have to because this is like the Lindelof thing, like or Leftovers. They did this too. There's this like tendency to overplay your hand early on because you're trying to intrigue the audience, but to like pull back on it later.
Yeah.
And it feels to me like that's what's going on, that like they were really trying to like push this idea, so they made it harder to deny
Yeah.
in season one. But in season two, you know we get pretty definitive, like the vision she has in season two is more sort of obvious in terms of like coming from her like internal psychology, and not necessarily predictive of anything. And
I
and
don't remember it.
yeah, well, we'll have to get to it,
Yeah.
but I have a vague man. It's like in a mall. um uh
Oh, yes. I sort of remember that now.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. There's like this competition, like they'll go out and hunt, and
Yeah,
Lottie's gonna win
I
because she's
remember that.
got the magic or whatever, and she's like, oh god, I don't know what I'm doing. Like you see
Yeah, that
Lottie's
seems
self-doubt as well,
mhm.
more so than you do in this season.
Yeah,
you
so,
know
yeah, yeah.
um like she seems more, especially towards the end of the season, like she seems a lot more sure of herself and what she's doing and what she believes and so on. But I think the thing with Laura Lee is interesting because it does feel like it's sort of, it's a little bit like it isn't all the way this, because they kind of pull back on Lottie as the main villain of the back, like that's not it at all. But there is, I mean, certainly with Doom coming, we'll talk about that in a second. Like there, she crosses some lines, I think. Now they might have been partially drug influenced, but like
Yeah.
there was definitely some questionable decisions there towards the end. and it's like it creates this thing like Zial's death on Deep Space Nine, where
What?
where it's
Wow,
like
that's a
where
deep
where
cut.
it feels like if Laura Lee had lived, Lottie's path would have been different
Yeah, yeah,
because Laura Lee would not have gone in for this stuff, I think.
yeah,
And she would have been a more of a positive influence, I think.
yeah,
And
yeah. Well, I mean, definitely Laura Lee's not sticking around when they're like saying grace to the god of
to
the
the yeah,
woods
yeah,
or
totally, totally.
the
That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
Like, yeah, like I feel like it's like she's going to Laura Lee and she accepts that. It's not like she really rejects Laura Lee. It's just that Laura Lee dies, and
yeah,
so she has to like somehow figure it out on her own. And she's not fully invested in like Laura Lee's worldview per se. So it's like without a spiritual guide, like she has to be her own, and it leads her into this weird place. But yeah, I just think that connection is interesting. And then I also just want to talk about that hallucination that happens when she does the baptism, because it's, well, so first obviously this deer with like the blood antler stuff happening,
yeah,
which appears later, and it's like, okay, like you know I mean, it's hard for me not to see that as some kind of prediction of the future.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
it's kind of wild if that's just a coincidence. Because what where would that even come from? Why would you even think that? There's no indication that Lottie has any knowledge of wilderness stuff or whatever before in the flashback. I mean, she's like in this wealthy family in a house in the city. There's no,
Yeah, yeah.
if they told us that she went out hunting, or like there's a version of the show where I could be like, okay, maybe she knows about this thing and that's how she came up with it, from her mind.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like comes out of nowhere. And then the other thing is that she's in this weird, like dank Dharma-esque hallway,
Yeah.
you know,
It's weird.
and there's like
It reminds
candles.
me of Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, the boiler room nightmare kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, it's totally in that vein. And I know there were people, and because they're like leaning into Lottie predicts the future here, there were a lot of theories that like maybe there's a place, somewhere like this. Maybe there are
There's a
some
hatch.
some yeah, maybe there's a hatch and there's some corridors like this, and
I don't want to see that show.
some
I
connection.
don't, that's not,
Yeah,
no.
I don't think that's gonna happen. I just like people were saying this,
Yeah, yeah.
and remember the tree that like was like uh
Yes.
melty in the
Yes.
cold, and where Javi was and stuff. Like
Yeah, and it was like warmer
people really
and
thought like, oh, they're gonna discover this thing and it's gonna, and it's like I mean I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't believe that for a second. But I do think the choice of venue for that is weird.
it's
Somehow the mall thing makes more sense to me because I could imagine that at some point in her life she went to a mall. But like, where the fuck is she conjuring this
yeah, yeah.
underground corridor
Yeah.
system?
So there's so much shit that I want to say from what you're saying, but it's all from like different episodes.
No, you can say anything. I mean, I brought up
Like the
later stuff.
last time you see Javi, you don't realize that it never occurs to you. This is the last time we're gonna see Javi.
Yeah, when
And
Shauna says run.
yes, and he does.
He does, yeah. And
Um,
it's like scary too. They do this like voice
yeah, her
alteration
voice is
thing.
yeah. And then like you mentioned the vision, like she see during the baptism, it's like she sees the fire, or you're invited to think in
Yeah,
retrospect that like
the
blazing
flame
flame
behind
behind
Laura Lee's
Laura
head.
Lee
Yeah,
could be a premonition of the
the
plane
plane
catching fire,
exploding. Yeah,
which I know that I talked about ad nauseum the first time around, the teddy bear
yeah,
catching fire. It's
yeah,
so scary and weird and mystifying.
yeah,
Um
yeah, yeah,
and like why? It's easy to imagine that that plane would not be flight worthy or
Yeah.
whatever. But why does the teddy bear catch fire?
Yeah, I mean, it feels stylistic to me, but like I
But then here, query this: did the teddy bear catch fire, or something else caught fire, and that is like part of a vision?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll tell you, when I looked at it this time, it did look to me, and again, I don't like to read too much into like production stuff because like there's practicalities in the way they show things because, spoiler alert, like they didn't she wasn't literally flying a plane that blew up, so
Right, of
like
course.
they're faking it, right? So like but it actually did look to me like the fire actually came from below the seat. That's
Oh,
how it appeared to me this time, like that it
okay.
was coming up from below the seat and
Okay,
like
so let's say it's coming up from below the seat. The teddy bear, I mean, I feel like toys should be flame retardant, but okay. Um, Toy catches fire because of the material.
yeah,
It's hot enough, jet fuel leaking, maybe.
yeah, 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 that's what I was gonna say,
Yeah.
because they say the
Although if the jet fuel was leaking, then there wouldn't still be any.
yeah, so I was thinking about that and I was like, okay, so and I don't know shit about planes, so like please don't at me.
My
Um
grandfather used to fly planes, so I think I could just read a manual and figure it out.
if I'm wrong about this, but I mean like it might just be bullshit, but like I was just thinking how could the fuel tank be full but it blows up. So I was thinking like what if there was a leak not in like the tank area but in one of the fuel lines going somewhere,
Okay.
and that's what caused the
Okay,
fire.
sure,
Like
sure.
that feels like it's
Airplanologists, hit us up. Let us know.
yeah, that feel I mean, I in a generic sense it feels plausible to me, but obviously I don't
Yeah.
I don't know if that's actually a possible explanation. And also, like, it's worth saying again, I don't think any of the writers on the show are like airplane experts or anything. It's totally possible that, the way they're portraying it is just, you know, fabricated for what they want the outcome to be. And we shouldn't try to think too hard about, I mean, I've heard sometimes there's like Hollywood horse manure in the way that we portray flight and so on.
Yes. Yes,
Um,
indeed.
so I would leave space for that. But yeah, in my head, like I was thinking like, okay, there's something wrong with the plane, but it still has the
Yeah.
fuel, so it must be like something that's not preventing the tank from staying full, but is like causing it to catch fire and explode.
Yeah, I'm sure there's 100 things that could be wrong with it,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't, yeah.
It's
Not an expert
it's
here.
I mean, it is great when Coach Ben is like, "Loreley, I'm still the only adult here and I'm
Oh
telling you
no.
no." Oh no, did I blow that? You wanted to
Sorry, I was gonna say something about that specifically,
Okay.
but it's okay. Go
No, I
ahead.
mean, no, it's we'll get there. We'll get there.
It's okay. I just like that.
No,
Yeah,
let's hop back in.
that was something I really wanted to talk about.
We'll
But
get to it.
okay, because I agree with you, but I
Lead us
agree with you a
forward.
little too much. Okay, so let's see. Yeah. What else happens in this episode? Let's see. Okay. Yeah. 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 Right.
Well, yeah,
Oh yeah. Misty kidnaps Jessica.
yeah,
Oh yeah. Tyson's revealed to be the lady in the tree.
yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is this the one where, because she's having visions, Lottie comes upon Thaisa in the middle of the night eating dirt and looking crazy, and then
Yes.
asks her
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
were you eating dirt?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's like, "What? No."
And she thinks
And
it's
she thinks she's
just
great. She thinks it's a
she's
vision. She thinks
imagining
it's, yeah.
it. Yeah. But it's like actually that was
Yeah,
real.
this is also the episode where
That's a Lindelof thing too.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, it's all in my head. Like, no, you're wrong actually this time.
Yeah, so this is also the episode where Thaisa come real goes looking for Shauna and helps her
Oh yeah.
try to do an abortion
Yeah.
in what is the most difficult thing to
Basically like a
watch.
coat hanger abortion.
Yeah.
Just like the worst kind of self-abortion you could do.
What's the
It
best kind? If
something
you're
with
in the wilderness,
equipment
I see.
that's like
Yeah,
not just like
it's
stabbing
yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
Uh it's
Full
just
on
like it's the
support.
cliche like dangerous version.
Yeah, well, it was yeah, we're well,
And yeah, I think there's a thing here of it actually carries through it carries through is it the next episode? I don't remember. It carries through one of these episodes.
mhm.
The Thaisa and Shauna like
Yeah,
bond.
they've got
It,
this
it sort of helps
bond.
build that because Thaisa's the first one to realize what's going on, and then she runs out there to like help, and like they go through all this stuff that like no one else is really privy to,
Yeah.
and so it's like it's this like personal like thing that they have, and you can see as adults like there's like this lingering, I don't know, it's interesting
Yeah,
to
this
me.
is definitely what brings them together.
Yeah,
This yeah, the and yeah.
yeah, she's like, I'll help, or I'll be here or whatever, and it's like, oh, I can't do it.
Yeah.
It's like, and I understand it's not something I would want to do. But yeah, I just think like in terms of various character dynamics, it's kind of a significant thing for this like latter part of season one. They're also in the attic together, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So like that's another thing, and that comes into play at the end. Um okay.
Yeah, that's how it starts, I think. Well, I don't remember if that's really how it starts, but yeah, when she's trying to prove Thais is trying to prove that there's
Yeah,
nothing to be afraid of in the attic.
it's fine to sleep up there,
Yeah.
and yeah,
And
yeah.
Shauna's like, we can't
Someone should go up
yeah,
there
be by
with
herself.
her, and yeah, exactly. So she
For
had
the record,
up
I'm not
there.
going up there.
I don't know that I'd be into that, but I've never been in that
No, you
situation.
just have to demystify things, but let's
Um,
hope I'm never in that situation.
so yeah, I think that's what I want to say about episode 6. So yeah, so then we can talk about episode 7, No Compass. So this includes the expedition. Um, uh, um, uh,
Yeah, Thaisa thinking, we can't just sit here and wait. No one's coming. We
yeah,
need to see if we can find
yeah.
something to save
Yeah,
ourselves.
it's sort of like the show has like two versions of the raft from Lost. Like this is the first one where they're like, we're gonna set out and try to find something. We're just gonna keep trekking. There's got to be something somewhere. Sort of the Blair Witch Project. Like, come on, like how far can civilization be? Like if we walk, surely we'll find something. And then obviously the plane, which is later, the next episode. So yeah, that's where we get the River of Blood and the Red Smoke. Um, and they're attacked by a pack of wolves, and Tice is up in the tree with the bone talisman, which is an intriguing thing.
Right.
I'm inclined to, so we from later in
And the
the
flare gun.
season, yeah, and the flare gun too. From later in the season, spoiler alert, we see that the bad one has like killed Biscuit the dog, and like put its head on a table, a heart too, I guess, and the doll with the eyes out, and like painted the symbol there as some kind of sacrificial altar to help her win the election. I mean, that's what we were led to believe. I don't know that they ever totally tell us that direct. I mean, the weird thing about the bad one, I'll talk about that more later, but anyway, the point I'm trying to make is the bad one, and there's also the thing of going to find the trees with the symbol, and the eyeless guy too like appears. um so like it seems to me like the bad one is like more in, whereas Thaisa herself is quite skeptical and like more of a
Yeah.
Scully type.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
bad one is like Mulder, but she's dirt. I don't know. That's not true at all. But she's like she's like at least implicitly like buying into that stuff as like meaningful and powerful and so on. You know. So it seems like that's what's going on with the bone talisman. You
Yeah,
know,
that makes sense.
that it like fits in with that idea that
Hmm.
like this is a sort of like this like pagan ritual stuff, you know?
Yeah, I mean that makes it seem like there is something that Lottie is tapping into, or that is tapping into Lottie,
Yeah,
and that the bad one is tapping into, or is
yeah,
tapping into the bad one,
yeah,
where like there is something about that bone, there's something about the symbol.
yeah,
Um
yeah.
and I mean that, yeah. We talked a lot in the season 2 podcast about, whether even Lottie thinks that there's something there. Like
Mm-hmm.
which thing is true.
Yeah.
Um
And that's a little
but I mean, I think that's
ambiguous.
what the show, I think, you mentioned like doing something bold and then slowing your roll a little bit. Like shows kind of have to, or they benefit from holding on to some of that ambiguity, but you just don't want to hold on to it for too long.
Yeah.
But once you give a definitive answer, then you've cut off a lot of
You're
avenues.
stuck. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. You box yourself in. Yeah, it's tricky. It's a tricky thing to do, you know? And like I talk about that's a weird way to start that sentence. Anyway, I often think when I see any kind of flash forward that it's exciting in a way, but it's also disappointing in a way because it confines your outcomes to a degree,
Yeah.
so like the simplest example of that is like the people that we know survive like have to survive.
Yeah.
So when we're watching those flashbacks, Misty and Van and Thaisa and Shauna and Natalie and Travis, they're gonna be fine. That we don't have
Well, they're gonna
to.
live.
We don't. Okay, they're gonna be fine. It's going too far, but yes, they're guaranteed to be rescued. And so, like any peril that they're in, you have to know. So anyway, like you have that downside, I guess.
Yeah.
And that is sort of baked into the structure of the show. But I think the flip side of it, the part I like about it is the sort of like classical Greek tragedy thing of this foretold conclusion that and like the slow roll of they see it coming, like there's a lot of comments about like we're gonna starve out here, we're gonna die out here, and like they don't fully take it seriously initially, but like it sort of gradually dawns on them that like yeah, uh, this is like we're in serious trouble and
Yeah.
we need to come up with something pretty drastic to have any chance. And obviously it ends up being like cannibalism, but
Yeah.
you know like like I like that part of it. I guess it's sort of the trade-off. You have to sacrifice some of that unknown, but you get this foreboding of what's coming. And I do like that about the flashbacks. Like there is something, any moment they have, is that's pleasant or I don't know, like redeeming or something. Like it's like it can't be. It can only go so far. Like this isn't going to end well, you know.
Yeah.
And actually, I should say that about Natalie and Travis as well, because I think like Natalie and Travis season one goes through all the beats of a rom com, basically, you know, and
Yeah.
and they have a happy ending, in the
Hmm.
flashback,
Yeah.
just to clarify. Not in the present, but we know where they end up, right?
Yeah.
They don't live happily ever after.
Right,
It
right.
doesn't work out
Yeah.
in the end, you
Yeah.
know. Like they come back to the real world and they're like a fucking mess. They're both like completely losing their minds and not able to cope at all, and like barely hanging in there. And at this point in the show, they're both dead.
Yeah.
you know? So so anyway, like I think that's interesting too, because the way the flashback plays out in like more or less like a classic way of like starting from antagonism to the romance to the falling out, the betrayal, and then the reconciliation. They have every one of those steps. So anyway, I don't know. That was something that I kind of appreciate about it because it gives you the feeling of like, oh, look at that, they made up. But it's like, yeah, but like it's not gonna last.
Yeah.
How far can it really go? And Travis has to deal with like Javi and stuff in season two, and Natalie's culpable for that too. So it's like it's a it's a rich tapestry. So anyway, that's just another example of that thing of sort of like there's a predefined conclusion, but there's also some pathos that's there from the fact that it's going to end tragically,
Yeah.
and so like those happy moments are transitory
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah.
You know, there's not going to be some ending that's everybody's happy with. Okay, yeah. So the other thing I want to talk about is the wolves. So like, there's a few times in season one where Titus sees these wolves, and like
Adult Thaisa.
yeah, adult Thaisa, and like uh, is it just this thing? Is it just that there's this one time when they got attacked by wolves? I'm not saying it's not insignificant,
Yeah.
you know,
It's a good question.
but like I remember at the time thinking there was more to it, but then I believe in season two they don't go back to the wolves. I don't We see the Isla Sky, but I don't think we see the wolves
No, I don't remember seeing
again.
them.
It's like they drop it and I'm like, oh, were they just like building up for this one wolf attack and like it doesn't really mean anything beyond that? I don't know. That's just a question I had after rewatching it, because it really seems like a significant thing seem in season one, at least to me. Like that's how it comes off to me.
Yeah, it makes me, I mean, I think there's kind of a couple ways to read it. One is they just thought it would be a cool effect. It's ominous. And they
Yeah.
knew that they were going to give us this wolf attack. Or um there's something else coming that we don't know.
Yeah.
Or it's referencing like what for her was the psychological significance of her behavior during the wolf attack, of the fact that she took the talisman away from the girl she was
Yeah.
committed to protecting, who only went because of
Yeah.
her,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then she left them
Yeah.
vulnerable.
And climbed up in a
um
tree.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that she's doing this, I don't know. Maybe it's too far to say. And then she's like doing the Senate race, which is compromising her personal relationships in a different kind of a way.
Yeah, to talk
Um,
about that, but yeah, go ahead.
anyway, it's just a thought.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think that parallel is very much there. I do feel like they're inviting us to make that comparison for sure.
But yeah. Those wolves. I mean, they mention wolves in like the second
Yeah, yeah,
episode.
it was really early on. Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, oh, did they just know? I don't know. Anyway, it was just a little weird to me.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
maybe it's just like referencing this ultimate threat kind of lurking out there.
yeah,
That you can't, maybe you can do this, maybe you can do that, you can overcome these things, but there's always something lurking that you can't protect yourself from.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But then again, she does kill that wolf, but she wasn't really able to protect them.
yeah,
Even
yeah.
though Van just ended up with a scar.
I yeah, I was just gonna say, I feel like we've beaten this to death, but
Yeah,
Van's wounds heal extremely, even in
so
this season, but like
fast.
later on, like they're barely even
Yeah, in
noticeable.
Doom coming, when she's like, I want to see you before
Yeah.
to get off, and I'm like, oh, okay.
You think it's gonna be horror, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's like not bad at all.
Yeah.
Like, wow, Akila did a
It's
real
really
good
good.
job. Like, damn,
Yeah.
she should be a like professional surgeon. Anyway, um,
Would that it had been so.
yeah, I know. She had a bright future. So yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. The other thing I was gonna say, right, so this is the episode where Jackie reads Shauna's journal and finds out about Jeff and stuff. And obviously, that's going to come into play in the big confrontation at the end. But I just wanted to note that because it's a turning point for Jackie. Like
Yeah.
Jackie after this is a different person.
Yeah.
It's like it upends her whole view on the world and her relationship to Shauna and like
Yeah, because you got to think there's other stuff in there too.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, and so anyway, I just wanted to say that I will say more about it later. Okay, so yeah, this is also in the present day. This is the episode where we get the blackmailer chase, the glitter,
Oh, okay.
you know, all that business.
Yeah.
Um,
Ooh. Yeah.
which obviously you know comes into play later. Um, I forgot to mention it, but in the previous episode is when Misty kidnaps Jessica Roberts, and in this episode, you know, we get our first scene with Jessica Roberts as the Henry Gale of Yellowjackets. The
Oh,
dynamic is so similar, and you brought up earlier that thing of like trying to turn Misty against the other Yellowjackets by playing on the thing that is her insecurity, you know, in
yeah.
exactly the way Ben does with Locke, and you know,
Yeah. She's
just
like
like, why
left
aren't you the
out.
leader? Like, you know, like
Yeah.
you know, he's like specific. He's like, she's like trying to get Missy to throw some dishes. You know, and it does get to her to a degree, you
It
know.
does. Although yeah, I don't it gets to her, but I don't think she would ever have well, we'll talk about that.
Maybe not as much as Ben gets the log,
Yeah.
but it's a similar dynamic. She also learns that she was hired by Thaisa, which you know I feel like doesn't matter very much in the grand scheme of things. And so that's just what I was going to say about this. You know, watching the end game of all that stuff. You know, because I was complaining about it in the first podcast, and I've complained about it on other podcasts, and so on.
And you will
And
complain
I'm gonna
about it on
complain about
other
it now,
ones.
but like I do think just taking a step back and with my expectations in the right place, um I do like the scenes. I think the scenes are good, so I don't totally object to it, I guess. It's like I think my main objection is that on a plot level it doesn't matter. But that's okay. I mean, like if it's a good scene, even if I mean there's plenty of scenes in the show that don't matter on a plot level that are good scenes. So anyway, I'm just giving it some credit for that because I do kind of like the dynamic that they end up having, even though yeah, it doesn't
Yeah, I agree.
none of that stuff like goes anywhere, but like it's interesting and it's interesting the way it ends, despite the fact that they seemingly form a bond. I guess you learn that you know Misty didn't believe in the stuff that Jessica Roberts was trying to sell her, which was obviously manipulation, so she would let her go.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like, oh yeah, just get ready to, you know, be a star or whatever.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Yeah, when I think
think about how you're gonna spend your royalty check, or I forget what she says, but it's just like you know, Misty's like, yeah, like acting like she believes it, but
but it reminds me also of like the Shauna with the rabbits in her garden,
yeah,
eating her produce, where eating her garden, that it's like it's not plot relevant, but it does tell you something about the person that that kid grew up to be, that
yeah.
she would do this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, on a character level, for Misty is very inside. I mean, it's you know, we already know that she'll cross some lines, but it's like it's taken things to another level, and obviously we're gonna cross some further lines at the end of the season, as well as you know, in season two.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it is building that thing for sure. Um let's see. Oh, right. Yeah, this is also an episode where Adam hides in the closet after the glitter thing. So that's what leads to the
Right.
false
The
impression that
suspicion.
he was the blackmailer and, of course, the murder
Yeah.
that is coming soon.
Yeah.
Um, oh, yeah. And Natalie uses Kevin's gun. Um,
Yeah. Oh my God. Natalie is such a fucking menace.
she's like really cruel to Kevin, and it's just not
Poor
fair at all.
Kevin.
it's like I really don't want to hate Natalie, but she really can be awful at times.
Yeah, she's just like very broken.
Yeah, that is true. And obviously she has her sympathetic moments. I
Yeah.
don't think she's entirely awful, but it's just there's times where she just really uses people in a cruel way. And
Yeah.
it's just like
Yeah.
it's hard to watch.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we go into episode 8, Flight of the Bumblebee. I think we all know
Mm.
what that means. Yeah, so the trekking group goes back to the cabin.
Yeah, so this is like, yeah, I mean, just skipped over the fact that they almost burned Van alive. Okay, whatever. And we later find out that she feels that she had some kind of, that she had a vision or a near-death experience or whatever, that she like sensed something as it was happening. But like, holy hell, she gets attacked by a wolf and then they almost burn her alive.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
that
mean,
is
what to say to
crazy.
that?
That is totally crazy that that happened. They so thought she was dead that they were gonna just burn her
It's a little
corpse.
hasty, even if you are 100% confident to the level of like a medical professional.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know of any faith tradition that immediately cremates bodies.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I guess if
yeah.
you're out in the woods, but yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, it's like there's another version of the show where there's like some Desmond type character going like you're supposed to die, man. Like it really feels like she's getting brushed with death.
or
Like,
a deleted
come
scene
on.
where Thais is like, "No, we have to bury her," and Misty is like, "No, we have to burn her because the smell of blood will just attract more
Hmm.
predators."
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Anyway,
yeah. Maybe they had that scene and they cut it because that actually seems plausible as a reason. Um, okay. Yeah, so then yeah, we get this Natalie and Travis scene where they're supposed to have sex and then like Travis can't get an erection, so he like runs away. Like I think that whole thing is interesting because it's pretty rare. Like you don't see this much. Like I haven't seen this much. If this kind of scene happens, it's usually with someone who's older and like just legit struggling with getting erections in general. That's the
not a
classic.
virile 17-year
Yeah,
old.
yeah, like it's like you
Yeah.
you never see, and it's like I think they don't say this directly. It's never stated. There is a scene with Ben and Natalie later in this episode where he speculates, and I feel like his explanation is the true one, that he was just nervous
Yeah, sure.
and that's all it was.
Hmm.
um but that it's sort of the beginning of the riff because he's like really embarrassed about it
Yeah.
and sort of avoids her for a period of time, and then like Jackie steps in
Jackie's got a Jackie.
because she's on her kick of I don't want to die virgin, and and also like I don't care about anything anymore.
Nihilism. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so yeah, we also get like I said, the scene with Natalie and Ben. Actually, I think like the Natalie and Ben like relationship that kind of develops in the season is also kind of an interesting thing. And
Yeah, it's sweet.
yeah, no, I like it a lot, and I feel like it'll be interesting to see where they carry it forward now that Natalie's the antler queen and Ben just like tried to burn them all. Because like that's
That'll get in the way of a friendship.
it's a change in the dynamic. But yeah, like he admits he's gay, and she tells him about this thing, so it's like,
Well, it's like Natalie already knows.
well, he knows, but she knows, but he, yeah, like hasn't said that to
I think
me.
it's just such a great reason. Like, how did you know? Because you never look at our tits. And it's like, oh God.
Yeah. Yeah, the implication of that is like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
so that means that like Travis's dad was like anyway. Like I just feel like that's what that should
It
mean.
invites that interpretation, certainly.
But yeah, it's and the Ben stuff like about Paul and all that like carries through into season two.
Yeah.
So it's like there's more meat to that than there was when I saw this like when you
Yeah.
just see season one, like they kind of flesh it out further, and there's the thing about the condoms as well. Like he had this like giant roll of condoms
Yeah.
that he
Yeah.
took for the nationals. Like
Just
really,
going to party in
it's just gonna
Seattle.
be a few days. Like really do you need to anyway. um okay. Yes. And then we also have yeah, Laura Lee's ill-fated flight attempt. They clear the thing. But yes, this is where I want to talk about this, because to me this is this is my favorite. I never feel more admiring of Laura Lee than when Coach Ben's like, no, Laura Lee, I'm an adult and I say no, you can't do this. And she just calmly steps up and says, what are you going to do to stop me?
Yeah.
It's like she's not threatening, she's not being hostile. She just like, this is what I'm gonna do. And like there's also this recognition that, so like it shows like her like inner strength, I guess. Like if she thinks she's supposed to do something and it's the right thing to do, like she's not gonna let some like weird, like, oh, because you're an adult, I'm just gonna like abandon what I think is like, the only chance we have at rescue and so on,
Right. Right. I'm
um
not just gonna engage in this like socially accepted idea that uh, people under the age of 18 should be obedient to
him, yeah,
adults
yeah.
against what I really believe is in our best interest.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then like on the flip side of it, I think for Ben, who actually helps clear out the
Yeah.
runway, though he tries to convince her one more time not to go,
Yeah.
but like that like, oh, I actually have no authority here.
Yeah.
Like not only am I missing a leg, but
Yeah.
like even if he had two legs,
He's
he couldn't do shit.
outnumbered.
He's so outnumbered. There's no chance that he could do anything about it, even with two legs.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, yeah, I'm just one of the group now. Like, I don't have any special, position here. And I think that is like part of his arc as well. But I think just because like,
Well, I
just
mean,
because,
he's kind of at their mercy, and we see
yeah,
that with the way that he's like letting Misty believe that he's in love with Leia, where
yeah,
it's like, I can't protect myself against her.
yeah, yeah, totally, totally. Uh, but yeah, there's just I think like, yeah, like there's just something admirable about that like it's too bad it worked out the way it did, but it's like, you know, if the plane had been functional, like, it's like I'm almost ready to believe that she could have flown it to some field with a farm or something
Yeah.
and been like, I flew from this direction, and because it was in the air, it really seems like if the plane had been properly working, like it doesn't seem like they're portraying it like she did something wrong. That's the
No.
impression I had.
No. I do think landing is quite hard.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I'll buy that. But
Um,
I love the idea that she learned how to fly from a
from
manual
a
and
user
like
manual.
got the shit in the air.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would be afraid to try that. But it's like, again, like the will to do that. Like there's something, I don't know, there's something impressive about that. And I think like, yeah, like Laura Lee is just an interesting. I forget about her because she isn't, she dies here.
Yeah.
But for like a smaller arc, like I think they did something
Yeah, I mean, it
really good with that.
also it speaks to the power of faith.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
as compared
totally.
to other modalities, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, I said on the last podcast, but I still think like it's like, it's not this type of character is not usually portrayed like this. And so
Yeah.
so I just kind of appreciate that. Like it's like a positive spin on that kind of character, and like what that disposition could be in a way that is sympathetic and not just like judgmental
Like
and
a
mean
joke or
and all that.
judgmental.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like which
I
is how
agree.
it's often shown,
Yeah, I
like
agree.
you don't have to take it that way.
Hmm.
um okay. Let's see. Oh yeah, this is the one where this is the one where so Misty's spying on Natalie. She's got that
Oh my
camera
god,
in the
yeah.
owl, and she sees Natalie buying some drugs, and
Oh
she
my god.
storms in. And
And she snorts
she
it.
snorts it
She
herself.
snorts it and then takes the rest and like throws it up in the
And
air.
then like
Oh my
yeah,
god.
it's such a ridiculous scene. Anyway, sheer delight, I can only say. And oh right. So yeah, this is a small point. I don't think it matters, but in the long run, see what I said earlier. But yeah, it is actually Jessica Roberts who finds out about Travis's bank account being emptied. And Misty tells it to Natalie, and this is how she finds out. And this is like where that whole thing gets going.
Yeah, unfortunately for Susie.
She goes to meet Susie. She blackmails Susie. And here's again Natalie, like, just using people in kind of a cruel way. Like, it's like, this is someone who, like, put her life back together. And, like, she was, like, a sponsor of yours. And this, like, Narcotics Anonymous. And, like, now you're gonna, like, it's just like, I don't know. How low can you go? Come on, Natalie. Anyway, and it's like, in the end, it really wasn't worth it.
Yeah,
Like literally the same thing would have happened regardless.
but they don't know that.
It's true they don't know that. Okay, yes. And this is the episode where Thaisa tells Simone about her condition, and fearing that she's going to hurt Sammy or hurt Simone, she says, "You got to leave me here alone.
Yeah.
I'm worried it might hurt you." Right? I just want to note that because it may or
Yes,
may not be
yes.
portrayed differently later.
Yeah, I get it.
So this is an example of something that is an inconsistency, I think, that's like legit. It's not just like a plot thing. It's like it feels like they wanted it to mean different things in different scenes.
Right, because later we see Thais saying things like, I blew up my whole
Yeah,
life. I've been, my wife left me and took the
yeah,
kid. And it's
yeah.
like, well, wait a second.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then when they interact towards the end of the season, right? Simone's gonna come back to the house and get some
Mhm.
stuff for Sammy, right? That's when she finds the altar. The interaction they have suggests the Thaisa version was true. That actually she left. They're like super tense about everything. And
Yeah.
it wasn't the way they're portraying this, where she's like crying, going, I'm worried, I'm gonna hurt you. You
Mhm.
have to be safe. I want to keep you
Yeah,
safe.
let me keep
Stay
you safe.
away from me.
Hmm.
Like that's not coming from a place of like, well, fuck you, Thais, I'm leaving you and I'm taking Sammy. And that's how they portray it later. So anyway, I feel like, I don't know, did they not wanna, I don't know. I just feel like they should have written this
Yeah,
first
I
scene
feel like they
differently.
could, yeah, I feel like they could have stitched it together with a couple of extra scenes, but they don't.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Maybe it's just that it's too sketchy. Or maybe there are even deleted scenes that like patched up some of that stuff. Connected the dots or whatever. Um, Speaking of patching things up and connecting the dots,
oh boy.
this is
I know
also
where you're going with
the episode where Shauna discovers that her journals are missing from the safe and concludes that Adam took them. But in fact, uh,
right. Jeff has them.
he decided to, even though he says he read them years ago, but he took them out
He
again because,
he pulled okay, he pulled them out to to do the, what is it, ASCII? Is that what it's called?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
To
The
do
ASCII art
the
version of the
ASCII art
symbol.
version of the symbol. He had to take them all because he couldn't remember which one it was in, and then he didn't have time. He was going to put them back, but then somebody came to the door, so he just had to hide them.
I, you
There
know,
you go.
I like where you're
There's my
going with
answer.
that. It makes me want to go into uber nitpicky mode because, but I don't actually remember. But I believe earlier in the season they show Shauna checking the safe and the journals are there.
Yeah.
So I would want to check between when that scene happens versus when they get the ASCII art like blackmail,
Yeah.
text message. Because then that would make that more or less
Okay, here we go.
plausible.
He got them out to brush up on the names of the people from their graduating class in advance of the 25-year reunion.
Right. Right. I mean, he was in that class too, right?
Yeah, but he was a little forgetful and he
Okay.
wasn't sure where his yearbook was.
Okay, okay. Fair enough.
He wanted to remember the names of the people who didn't survive.
I love that last thing. That was a good addition. And also, he couldn't remember where his yearbook was. Let's just fabricate a whole thing to make this more plausible.
You know, I just like I could Google it, but
Yeah, I'm
I
I'm
don't want
over it.
Shauna to see that in my search history.
I'm over it, but I just bring it up because this one was actually one of your nitpicks from season one.
Yeah.
I didn't actually harp on this. This didn't even bother me that much, though I understand why it
That's funny.
bothers.
I don't remember that being my nitpick, but I do believe you.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You were definitely
You
complaining about
know,
this at the end of season one.
yeah. Well, it's a little bit of a problem and it fits with this like general confusion or this, that they don't fully tidy up, like, okay, but you did the postcards and you did
Hmm.
the text, or
Yeah, and
and does this have anything to do with Adam? I mean, not Adam, Travis? Like,
oh, right, right, right.
you
Travis's death,
know,
is that connected somehow? Because the symbol was there, and
right.
it seems, the symbols in the postcard and in the blackmail text.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it feels like it should be connected. And of course, we
'Cause
see it.
Natalie's like, so Adam's the one who killed Travis?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
Sean is like, no, no, definitely not.
He was
It's
with
like,
me.
because he didn't, yeah,
It's not possible.
fucking send the postcards
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, he didn't
or
actually
postcards
do
or texts.
anything
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
besides like a few small lies in the grand scheme of
This is what you
things.
get for lying about art school.
Yeah, that's why you don't lie about art school. I'd love it if that guy jumped
Mhm.
in. That would be
Yep.
hilarious. Anyway, yeah, so yeah, so she goes over to confront Adam because she thinks she knows what that means. But of course she's wrong. So that leads us right into the next episode, the seminal episode, Doom Coming, which features Doom Coming. This is a perfect example to me. Like whoever came up with this name, I love it. It's so evocative, and yet like it's got this like it's like alluding to homecoming, high school stuff, or college stuff, however you want to look at it. But like also it's like partially joking, but it's like partially true. It's like
Yeah.
part of that acknowledgement that and that's why Jackie proposes it, because she's in that mode of like, well, fuck it, we're all gonna die anyway, we might as well
Yeah.
enjoy ourselves while we can, like that's the place
Yeah.
she's
She
coming from.
suggests having a party.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, so I think that's just like it's I feel it's the first real step in the direction of the place where they end up.
Yeah.
You know, even though it's like it's mitigated by all these like specific things that happen, such as Misty's mushrooms accidentally ending up in the stew that they all eat. Like if they hadn't eaten the mushrooms, would they have done all that? Like probably not. But on the other hand, like, it's like, yeah, but like, here in the real world, right? People have mushrooms and they don't like
Yeah, there's clearly more to it than
form
that.
like a hunting party and like chase someone and like like get ready to like slit his throat and stuff. It's like it goes like so far, and it's like it seems like it unleashes something that is latent,
Yeah.
and that will come out more later. But it's sort of like they're getting wilder as they're out there,
Yeah.
and it really like brings that out. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, interesting uh, bits that happen here include um, yeah, like Ben and Natalie are sort of like out of this
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they're
Natalie's like, I got
separate.
some real booze if
Yeah, yeah. Well,
you.
let's just go somewhere else. Like they don't want to be, there's the tension with Travis
And
still
they're the
happening.
ones who figure it out.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, oh shit.
Yeah,
Misty
Ben's like, oh,
poisoned
Misty
me.
drugged me again.
She
And
poisoned all of us.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, exactly. They were like
And
sort of
Jackie,
then.
because she's like on a hunger strike, like a lengthy
Right.
hunger strike, doesn't get
Doesn't eat the stew,
dosed.
even though she was the one who proposed the party. So she also doesn't participate in this hunting party stuff. Like, you know, she's in her whole world, her own world. And Misty doesn't either, actually, because she goes to Ben, and like they have this interaction while this stuff is going on. So
No,
like
Misty doesn't eat any of it.
I don't think so. Or sorry, what are you talking about? Oh, no, no, no. I think
Oh, she doesn't participate in the hunt.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did she eat the stew? I mean, the interesting thing about Misty is she knew what was in the
She
stew,
knew, but
unlike everyone else. Did she eat it?
yeah, I don't. I feel like she does, but I don't remember.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. But I don't think she participates in this like crazy ritual thing
correct.
that happens.
Correct.
So I just think that's interesting. Like the characters who are left out of this. Um, uh, uh,
Right. And so then the next morning, Ben's like, wait, what? What happened?
yeah, yeah.
And then everybody else, and he's just like, look, we all had a rough night on account of the shrooms. And everybody else is like, what?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, they had no idea.
Yeah, there's like totally different things happening on this night.
Yeah, yeah, and Lottie is a big instigator
Oh, yes.
in this bit.
Oh,
And
yes.
and
She's the instigator.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, they have this weird oh yeah, there's this weird thing of right,
It's just,
sorry, what?
well, no, go ahead.
So Travis and Jackie are having sex, or they do have sex, or they're done, or whatever. In any case, um, and you know, like when they realize this, Lottie has this line like he doesn't belong to her.
Yeah, it's like where, they realize that they're gone. And
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, she took something that isn't hers.
yeah, and she says that to Jackie, like you took something that didn't belong to you, and then like Jackie references the fact that
That he'd broken up with
they
Natalie.
had
And
had
she's
a
like,
falling out. And
this
yeah,
isn't
it's like
about Natalie.
she said this has nothing to do with Natalie,
Yeah, and it's like, oh,
and I'm like, wait, okay, then what the
okay.
fuck does that mean, Lottie?
It's
What are you talking
really
about?
ominous. It's really ominous.
Like that's a weird thing to say. Then like I don't understand. Like, are you saying like you like collectively like you own him or something? Like what are you saying? Like I don't, it's just weird. I don't know.
It's really ominous,
It's never clarified
ambiguous.
either.
Yeah. Like he belongs to the place, he belongs to
Oh, the it
her,
thing or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's super ominous.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's like, but what, like, but she just had, I mean, like, what, that doesn't mean, I don't
She
know.
lost and they
It's
lost
like, wait, does everyone
Jackie.
having sex have to ask your permission first? What are you saying here? Like, I don't know. It just seems weird to me. And it stood out, and I still don't understand it. Um, and yeah, I want to say more about that later. but yeah, it reaches this point where Lottie orders Shauna to slit Travis's throat, and Natalie steps in.
Yeah, and the
So
howling
yeah, the
and the
howling.
chasing, and there's a shot where he's running and he's got, like, a deer head.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like they're hallucinating that they're chasing a deer or
Yeah, yeah,
something.
and when Shauna is going to cut his throat, she sort of sees it, like,
Yeah,
wavering
wavering. Yeah.
between the deer and his real face, and that's sort of gives her pause, and she's,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
looking
There's hesitation for
confused.
sure.
Yeah.
Like she's not fully wrapped up to where she's like ready to do
Mhm.
a full like thing and commit. But she like walks up to the edge of it, which I think is like what they want to do at this stage. Like they're not even with the shrooms, they're not quite going there.
Yeah.
Um okay. So in the present we have I'm sorry, Shauna killing Adam. Um uh you know, based on a misinterpretation, basically. Interesting scene the way they portray this. You know, they cut in symbol. They actually
Yeah.
show the younger Shauna there, which I, correct me if I'm wrong, everyone in the audience. Jackie's@gmail.com. Maybe I forgot something. I don't think they've ever shown anything like this before or since.
Yeah, I was struck by this. I didn't remember it from the first time, and I was really taken by it in this time. But so yeah, like Shauna, like the same scene, they shot it twice with the actress who plays adult Shauna and the
Yeah,
actress who plays kid Shauna, and they're like cutting back and forth. It's interesting to I mean, I've seen that before in things where they're showing us this like or interior life of the person that's like triggering this fear or maybe it's a way to displace the violence or but yeah, it's yeah, that's scene and it's I mean it's terrible and you find out, Adam was totally innocent and he
yeah,
really was what appeared to be, which was
yeah,
this really great earnest guy.
yeah, yeah. He lied about art school and he did Google Shauna,
Yeah.
but like that's it. Like that's it basically. Like everything else that he said it was basically true. And yeah, it's like um it's a tragedy in a way. It's also
Yeah.
it's actually similar to the Natalie and Travis thing where it's like we go through these sort of rom-com-ish beats, but we're gonna end with the murder, which
Yeah.
is like not the way, you know, not the way that story's supposed to end, you
Yeah.
know. Um of course it turns out she was also misinterpreting Jeff's behavior,
Yeah.
thinking he was having an affair. And, you know, there's Bianca character, and it's like, well, her name's Bianca. Like, you should have known she was a gangster.
Yeah. Wow.
No offense to
You just
Biancas out
alienated all the
there.
Biancas in our listenership.
But yeah, yeah, and then of course, immediately after, um, she figures out that oh shit, actually Jeff was the one who did the blackmail, and you know, they have this talk about it, and it it's because the furniture store was having some financial issues, um, and and Shauna admits that she killed Adam, and of course, also that she was having an affair. Though I think the murder is maybe the bigger deal at this point.
Yeah, probably
Um,
so. Murder's probably a bigger deal.
uh,
Poor sweet Jeff.
and yeah, and this is where like the thing that I think they had been building earlier in the season, but you didn't quite know how to take it because you didn't know if Jeff was having an affair or like what he was hiding or what was going on. Like that scene with Jackie's parents, you know, like he offers to take credit for the murder, that it was like he was in a
Yeah.
jealous rage, and And like,
Yeah.
and he's like, all right, so like I'm gonna go down and turn myself in. And it's like, oh my God, Jeff, please.
Sweet Jeff, just don't. And I love I Shauna, one of these days Shauna's just gonna shake her head and be like, poor sweet dumb Jeff. There's no way you would be able to pull off a lie like that. They
Yeah,
would see right through you. The cops would eat you alive.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and there's already like holes in the story, from the cell phone stuff and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
So it doesn't really it definitely wouldn't hold up
But
under
this is where you
scrutiny.
need somebody like Misty to help get you out of this.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Certainly Jeff is never going to get away with it.
Yeah, no chance, no
And they're going to
chance.
need all of those skills next season, but that's a different matter.
Yeah, yeah. So the idea she comes up with is no, we'll just dispose of the body and we'll tell the others that Adam was the blackmailer so that they don't know Jeff's the blackmailer. Um and yeah, and then Natalie goes to Misty to get help disposing of the body, which we pick up in the final episode. But yeah, okay, this is what oh, there's actually no, the other thing I can talk about next episode, but this thing is what I call the big lie in season two. Um and I I get it. I think I get it. But I think my issue with it is it feels to me like, just looking back at like how this plays out, it feels functional. It feels like it's so they don't have to have a confrontation right now about, wait, your husband was the fucking blackmailer? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, it would take the scene in a different direction, and it feels like they just wanted to avoid having to do that. But then, like, when they find out in season two, it's like they have a few lines about it and then it's over. And it's like not even, you know, like they just kind of like, oh, Jeff was a blackmailer? What? Oh, okay. Anyway, there's other stuff going on,
Yeah.
and they don't really dwell on it much. And so it just feels a bit pointless to me, other than, like I said, avoiding having to make that an issue in the scenes where they're disposing of the body, you know.
Yeah.
Like, no, actually, I thought he was the blackmailer, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
Because it also helps them have incentive for helping, dispose of the body. Because if he's the one who was blackmailing us, like, there's a personal grudge there.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's like, oh, this is just like this guy you're having an affair with that you thought was a blackmailer, but you were wrong.
Yeah.
That sounds like a YP, Shauna.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, why are we involved in this? You know, I don't know. So that's why it bothers me, I guess, because it feels like it's just manufactured to like make these scenes work, but like they don't actually have any good follow through on that idea. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's a I think a character level criticism.
Hmm.
you know that sort of bothers me about this thing in season one, though I enjoy the scenes where they're together and just they're fun scenes, so I can't object to that part of it. It's just, yeah, I wish they didn't have to like just manufacture a bullshit lie that doesn't matter, because it just feels like a bit of a waste of time to me. Okay, so then we move into the final episode of season six,
Woo!
Transit Gloria Mundi. Um, thus passes the glory of the world or something like that. And is this true? Oh yeah, wow. Incidentally, this episode is directed by one of the directors of the Blair Witch Project.
Oh.
Weird detail.
This episode includes the iconic entrance of these incredible queens to their high school
Come out and
reunion
play.
to the tune of Come Out
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Play. And it is so great.
There's there is yes, there is no more transcendent moment, and I absolutely love that thing. It's like it's a bit like I don't know who first did the like slow walk towards the screen thing.
Like the yeah, it's like Ocean's 11
Ocean's
kind of
11.
thing.
Yeah, did they have that in the original Ocean's 11? I can totally
Probably.
see that because like my reference point for that is Reservoir Dogs,
Ah,
but Quentin Tarantino is notorious for taking things from other movies, so
yeah.
I bet there's an earlier movie that did that, and I just don't know it.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, there's something about that. Like if you get some cool music going and you have some slow motion walking towards the
Uh-huh.
screen, it has this power that seems like more than what it's actually showing. Because what it's actually showing is not much. But yeah, there's something great about it. I guess it's like in a way they're celebrities because they went through this shit and no one else in their high school class did. And this is high school reunion. So I guess it's like partially that, there's a couple of like bits with like when Misty joins in where she's like looking at people and like doing some like like little like acknowledgments or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. I know.
Um but yeah. There's like two musical moments. I mean, in general, like we said on the podcast before, like I like how they use music on the show, both the classic 90s needle drops and the music they actually wrote for the show.
Yeah.
Like both of those like work really well. But yeah, I think sometimes they find that combination. It's just like and yeah, it's like why does that work? I don't know. I mean, it's not literal, right? It's a poetic thing. I mean, the song has nothing to do with what whether
It really does
it's not like a
then.
literal music video thing or whatever, which I think is part of what makes it better, But it's the spirit of the way it sounds that feels like it's fitting. Like, oh, this should be entrance music,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
And then I love it when it's when shows or movies do this where it's like, oh yeah, and then you switch to just knowing that that's just the music playing in the room.
Yeah,
Which makes sense because it's this nostalgic
exactly.
music.
They're playing stuff from the
Um
90s and yeah,
I
that
did
comes up
Google
later.
it, and Quora, at least someone on Quora thinks that an early example of this, well, yeah, so an early example of this is apparently known as a power walk. Though
Yeah.
there's argument about whether that is specific enough. But anyway, Clockwork Orange
Oh,
has
yeah.
one, but
I remember.
before that, there's a non-slow motion version 2 years earlier in The Wild Bunch.
Oh, I remember the Wild Bunch too. Oh,
So,
oh, it's the Wild Bunch. That's where Quentin Tarantino got it from. He's a huge Sam Peckinpah fan.
yeah,
I'm sure that's the reference.
okay.
Wild Bunch and Reservoir Dogs fit together perfectly. Yes, yes,
All
that
right.
is
Well, there
it.
you go.
There's the lineage. I knew there'd be something. I don't know why I didn't think of the Wild Bunch. That's such an obvious reference. Anyway,
Uh,
yes,
yeah.
100% it's that. Yeah, so there's like a Western vibe there, Um, like the law walking into town or whatever. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's obviously not that in a lot of ways. But just sort of, you know,
But yeah, I mean, it's huge. Again, and every head turns to look at them
yeah,
because, of course, they are their story defined everything about this
yeah,
class.
yeah.
Even before the crash, they were the biggest thing in town.
Yeah, they showed that in
Yeah,
those in the pilot and stuff. Like they were celebrities even before they left.
yeah,
Maybe not to the same extent, but still.
right. And now they're like tabloid
Yeah,
fodder.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so anyway,
exactly. Yeah, and the whole presentation is about them, Allie's thing.
which is so horrible.
Um, it really is. It really is. And I want to say more about
I know
that.
you love it.
Yeah, okay. So shall we? Yeah, let's do that then. Let's talk about present day. Yeah, they clean up the murder scene. Oh yeah, we find out that Randy helped with the blackmail as well. We talked about that before. Randy is such a like I feel like I talked about this in season 2. Like there like Randy had like such character growth or maybe growth, but at least change from the way he was as a teenager to the way he is as an adult. Like that shift is like so dramatic to me. It never ceases to amaze me because it's hard for me to even imagine. like the way he is as an adult, like that person acting the way he was shown, and we'll see him again in season two, in a similar way, both sides, so it's like they're being deliberate about this, because I would be tempted, if it was just season one, I'd be tempted to say they fucked up, but they leaned into it and did it again in season two, so I feel like they must have meant to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a weirdly interesting point to make about a character that doesn't matter. I don't know. I appreciate that when they do that stuff, when there's like enough attention on smaller characters to make them interesting.
I agree. Yeah.
um yeah, so there's a great scene where Shauna threatens Randy
So good.
at the thing. Yeah, and it's like the thing that's great about it is, like, I feel like in a normal story, um it would be like a funny scene, but like partially a bluff.
Yeah.
But it's like, I you know like, I don't, like, Sean, you can't totally write it off. Like, Shauna actually is capable of murder. We literally saw her
We've
do a
seen it.
murder.
Yeah.
So it's like, and they make that point again in season two. That whole thing with the van, and she goes and tracks the guy down
Yeah.
and gets the van, like she is legit dangerous.
Yes.
And you can't, and so, like the fear should be real. I don't even know if Randy realizes, the extent to which, like, you should take that threat seriously.
Yeah.
It's not just a thing she's saying.
Yeah.
It's something she has and could possibly follow through in the future. So anyway, that's what I like about it. There's like real force behind it. It's not just like, I'm going over the top because I want you to know how serious I am,
Yeah.
Okay. uh we get this great scene where Callie comes in, and it's like after the part, and like Sean and Jeff have sort of reconciled at this point. Their
Right.
secrets are
Right.
all out, and they're just like hanging out, having a good time on the couch, watching the election results roll in. Oh man, is Tyson gonna win the election? And then this thing comes up about Adam, and Callie found Adam's driver's license in the house. Like,
Yep.
it like dropped out while he was in there. So she knows, and
She
of course
knows
she
his
saw him at
name.
the
She
party
saw him.
too.
Yeah.
So yeah, so she knows his name, she knows what he looks like, and then this report comes, and it's like,
Yeah, there's this shot where Jeff and Callie are both like looking through the corner of their eyes at each other,
yeah,
like not making eye contact
yeah,
because they
yeah, yeah.
can't,
To acknowledge,
but like just to see is the other person reacting.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I guess that's the thing. Like, Callie doesn't know that Jeff actually knows. Like, not
Right.
only does he know that Shauna was having an affair, he knows that she killed the guy.
Yeah.
Like, he knows the full story.
Yep.
So it's like she's out of the loop in a way. And obviously they're gonna pick that up in season two. That's a thing going forward. But
Yeah.
it's just an amusing scene, because she's like not used to this vibe at all. And it's like, it seems positive, but then it's like, wait, but are you
The other shoe
implicated in a
dropped.
murder?
Yeah.
It's like, anyway, it's a good scene. Okay. So yeah, then we get Simone finding the altar. So we find out, what happened to Biscuit, and yeah, this is a ball I do feel they dropped in season two, because it's such a cool reveal in the moment. I love the idea of it. I mean, it's horrific, and the real Biscuit wasn't harmed. I don't, I have no, I don't condone violence towards dogs or humans, for the record. But anyway, um, especially not dogs. It's like the worst thing. I mean, luckily they didn't make us see anything. We just see the aftermath, but still the implication is extremely horrific. But I like the idea of it, because it shows how far the band was willing to go to, and like the significance that she attaches to these things, and it also seems notable to me that, aside from the symbol, like the doll, and like, they were things that were attached to Sammy, and it makes me wonder about her climbing in the tree and saying his name and stuff. It's like, it feels like there's something there, but they never really say
Yeah, that's an interesting
specifically,
point.
but it feels like there's some linkage there that never really gets made explicit.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a thought I had about that. Well, hey, we're here, right? How much, if at all, will they address the fact that Tice is an elected state senator in season three? Because it was zero in season
I
two.
know. Yeah. It's ugh.
Now, to be fair, I do think that season two takes place over a much shorter timeline. Um,
Yeah.
so like, there's a big gap between, I'm sure you all know this, it's January 2025, y'all. At least you Americans, but actually probably all y'all know you don't just assume office the day after you're elected. So
Right.
maybe. I'm just saying maybe. We'll see. Um okay. Misty poisons Jessica. So the end of that, it's this scheme where, it just feels very it's like, how could you have known that these steps are gonna happen? It relies on, so she poisons the cigarettes, right? She poisons the cigarettes, but she doesn't just, like, the simple thing to
It's
do
amazing.
is you
Like
poison the
the
cigarettes and you put them in the thing. She doesn't do that.
she's so scheming.
It's
It's
like, it's this extra layer of no, 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 no. I will take the cigarettes out of the bag, put them in the trash, and then when she goes and looks for them, I'll say, no, I threw them
mm,
away, and I'll get her to, like, ask for them back. So it's like, oh, is it so that she'll be, like, so craving them and thinking about them that she'll be guaranteed to smell? Is that sort of the gambit? Because it feels like it's a risk. I mean, that's what I said when we watched it.
yeah.
It's like, what if she doesn't look in her bag and she just walks out? Because, like, that's not implausible. After all this,
Yeah, she's got to be ready to say if she's walking out, she's got to be ready to say, "Oh, by the way, I
yeah,
threw away your,"
yeah,
you
exactly.
know.
I guess that's what you could say is her way out, like that she could force it to work if she had to,
Yeah.
But then what if she goes, "Oh, that's fine. After all this, I think I'm gonna quit. I've already gone through withdrawal." How do you know that's not gonna happen?
Yeah.
It seems plausible.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, that's a problem. She needs a backup plan.
No, I love the idea of it, and it's like, I always enjoy watching overly elaborate plans succeed for no reason. It's a part of almost every mystery show that I've watched. Basically,
Yeah.
like, it's hard. I'm like trying to come up with one where this doesn't happen, and it feels like
It's
it's
really
inherent.
satisfying,
Yeah,
because you're just so much less likely to see it coming.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. And it also plays on, I feel like, that sort of classic, like, confidence idea, which is that it has to be their idea. You have
Yeah.
to make them think it's their idea.
Yeah.
You can't be like, "Oh, you should have some cigarettes,"
Yeah.
like, don't give away what your
Before you
goal
go, have a
is.
chocolate. No,
Yeah,
that's all right, Misty. I'm not
exactly.
hungry.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I forgot about that scene where she's doing the chocolate and, like, threatening her family. It's so harsh. It's
It's
like, Jesus
really
Christ.
harsh. It's really
Jesus
harsh.
Christ. And it's like, I know she thought she was a blackmailer and stuff. So, like, okay, but even if she was trying to blackmail you out of 50,000, is that really call for that level? Like, it just seems like way over the top. I
Yeah.
mean, especially knowing the truth, which is, like, she was just doing her job. You can be
Mhm.
mad at her, but Tysa hired her to do that. So, like, it's not her fault, I don't think. Like, that's not, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, but if it's like, well, she knows this, if she thinks that she sent the message, then she thinks she knows the symbol.
Yeah,
So what else does
right,
she know?
right, right, right.
The answer is nothing.
You know what? Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. You just reminded me. So I'm just gonna say a few words about it, and then
Okay.
we'll just let it glide into the air.
Mhm.
Never to be spoken of again unless they bring it up again in season three. I just listened to a podcast where they thought they might bring this up in season three, and I don't think that, for the record. Okay. So Yeah, I okay. I don't want to complain too much about the postcard. Because I do think Jeff sent the postcards, period. Natalie says it, no one objects. I'm case closed as far as I'm concerned. Fine. I do wish that they just had a line about it here so it didn't have to linger. Small point. Okay. But I also think that, and this is why I was holding on to it. I feel like there's something creepy and evocative about the postcard because there's no message
Nothing
on
on it.
it.
Yeah.
There's just
Wish you were here.
the symbol and wish you were here with a picture of this like wilderness mountain area, right? Like the place where they were trapped. And like, it's like, that's fucking, and Jeff knows what they went through,
Yeah.
you know? And it's just like, to me, it feels like that should be coming from someone else. It feels like Jeff wouldn't do, I don't know. It's just like, you know, like the symbol thing, I sort of understand more because it's like I am inside knowledge,
Yeah.
you know? But like this, but that text message said bring $50,000, right? It's like, but the postcard didn't say shit. And it's like, what's even the point of the postcard? It's like just to unsettle them. Like, why are you doing that? I don't know. It just seems like it just doesn't seem like the two fit very well. And like that's part of why I wanted to believe it was someone separate, even though like it also makes sense that it's not someone separate. So and they're wavering on that in season one. Clearly they have Thaisa at one point say, you know, we
We
think
don't
the
even
one who
know.
sent the postcards is is the blackmailer. And then like she's like, we're not sure it's the same for,
Yeah.
like it's like it sort of flips. And so anyway, whatever. I just want to make a comment about the postcards because I doubt we'll hear from them again. And this is sort of where that idea dies more or less, even though there's a throwaway line about it in season two.
Yeah.
So, like, because I feel like it was a cool thing, and it was like an impetus for their getting back together, for Natalie to come back to New
Yeah.
Jersey,
Yeah.
you know,
Definitely.
and it really drew me in, and I somehow wish that it had meant more. But anyway, I'm over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't you tell?
Yeah. You really sound over it.
Yeah, so right, so Taisa wins the Senate race. We talked about that. And then yeah, so then we have this like so like Natalie's arc in the episode is like she comes to accept that in fact Travis killed himself, which is sort of true. I mean, it's at least like closer to true than that he was murdered.
Yeah.
Um and so she's actually ready to kill herself, right? She like puts a gun right to her head, chin, and she's like ready to pull the trigger. And and then this mysterious group wearing the symbol on a necklace, right? Which again feels like it should be, right? It feels like this should be this is the creepy thing connected to the, right? That's why I wanted to believe it. All right, I'm sorry. I said I wouldn't go back and then I did. Anyway, they come in and they just like take her out of the room, right? And at the same time we see that she gets this voicemail, and we are, thank you, permitted to hear it,
Hmm.
because they could have done it the other way and not let us hear it, but
Yeah.
we get to hear it. And she says these lines like,
What have you gotten me
what have you got me
into?
into? I think someone's following me.
Hmm.
Who the fuck is Lottie Matthews? Or I found out who emptied the bank account, right? So we are led to believe, which is at least somewhat accurate, that Lottie is behind emptying the bank account. I think that is true. And that she sent these purple people to
Yeah.
kidnap Natalie, and she's gonna be like super evil. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, like that's definitely how it comes off. Because like the message is like super
It's
ominous,
very
and the way they're
ominous.
dressed and acting is ominous.
Yeah. What have you gotten me into? I think someone's following me.
Yeah,
I mean, that's obviously supposed to be scary.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and the way they bust in, and the fact that they're wearing the symbol is creepy,
Yeah.
and the fact that they just like drag her out of there by force and
Yeah.
like take her to what is going to end up being Lottie's
But
camp.
then we find out that she's actually just running like some really high-end spa for
Yeah,
people who want to be brainwashed.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is not what it appears, and basically it was just to stop Natalie from killing herself. But I also think like in a way, I think it
Yeah, she has
makes.
another aromatherapeutic diffuser somewhere else in there that she didn't know about. That is the one that Lottie placed.
Right. Yeah. 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 So the stuff I remembered with the purple people at the motel, I guess, is in season two, and I feel like they're insinuating that they were watching. But yeah, how could they see in the room? I don't know. That's a good point. But yeah, I feel like there is a logical end point to Natalie's arc here, and in a way, I feel like it makes sense that she ends up dying at the end of season two. Like she comes to peace with this thing, and like they could have done whatever they wanted. They could have like had her live and found something, new. Like if Julia Lewis wanted to stay on the show or whatever, like surely they would have come up.
Yeah.
But just in retrospect, like knowing where it's going, it sort of makes sense. It's like she's already there here, and it's sort of like this is a temporary reprieve that they just circle back to at the end of season two. Even though obviously she doesn't kill herself, it's kind of an accident, but it's also not an accident because she steps in, to
Yeah.
protect that other person from the camp
Yeah.
that she like has that bond with, and you remind me of me, and all
Yeah.
that stuff. It's like I want better for you, kid. you know um I shouldn't have stabbed you with the fork or whatever. um you know
Totally.
so like I feel like it's there's actually, when I originally saw this, it was like I was just like, oh, this is just like she's just wrong, and she's gonna find out she's wrong, and like rethink this whole thing, and it's gonna pivot in a different direction. But when I watch it now, like it just has more impact because it's like, oh, like this is actually like a real thing, and it's not just a misinterpretation. I mean, not entirely, at least. And so like I feel like that part of the arc, like it works better now actually than it did in season one, when I thought it was just like they're just setting us up for this reversal. you know that's how it felt to me at the time, at least. So I didn't really take it seriously. um but I think now, like, yeah, I kind of get it. And so yeah, it's like I mean, a lot of them have issues and are in sort of like desperate states, but yeah, like she maybe is gone the farthest, I don't know, in that direction, I guess.
Yeah,
um
well, they have that conversation again when they're trying to find the,
oh, in the van.
yeah, in the
Yeah,
van.
when they're waiting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
where Tyson and Shauna are talking about how, you know, she does, Tysa at that time she has her wife and Sammy,
yeah,
and Shauna has Jeff and Callie, but the Natalie doesn't have anyone. She had Travis, but that was a really toxic relationship, and
yeah,
now he's gone. So like this idea that she doesn't have an anchor to normalcy in any way.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I mean, her upbringing, even before the crash, wasn't great.
Right, yeah, totally,
Uh,
totally.
so
Yeah, 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 and that's clearly like part of what is forming her personality and the way she is and stuff. But yeah, and she also has a line where she says to them, like, "You're just as fucked up as I am, but you're not as good at you're better at
you
hiding
better
it
hiding
or
it. Yeah.
whatever."
And I think there could there's definitely something to that.
I
I
think
mean,
so, for
as we
sure.
see that the bad one is still there
Yeah,
in Thaisa, and we see Shauna's some of the violence that she's
yeah,
capable of,
yeah,
or aggressive behavior.
yeah, yeah. Which was like directly tied to what happened to them in the wilderness. Like
Yeah.
they made that connection like
Yeah,
very
definitely.
explicit. So um
Well, yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
season one, hey,
season 1 in the
not bad.
bag. It's great. I
Not
can't wait
bad.
to rewatch season 2. We're not gonna podcast about it, right? Because we already
So my thought was that we would do like one after the whole season
okay.
and just kind of a like, we could talk about whatever we want to talk about from season two. And
Mhm.
then because obviously, yeah, we have the individual podcasts, like those are week to week. You can listen to those.
Yeah.
But
But
just
a retrospective of the whole
whatever
season.
seems interesting,
Okay.
and then like maybe room for a little bit of speculation on
All right.
what's coming in the forthcoming season three. So that's the plan going forward. Just one
Looking
more,
forward
and then
to
we'll
it.
launch into big season three coming in
Woo!
February. So get
Oh my
ready, y'all.
goodness. I can't wait. In the meantime,
But actually, one more thing.
that's right. You thought you'd gotten rid of us, but not quite.
You didn't. We're back. Except you probably won't perceive it that way. But anyway,
Hmm.
this was recorded, and there were a few things that were left unsaid that we will now say. So
Not all of the things we didn't say, but some of
all
them.
of them. So I mean, at least on my part.
Yeah, circumstances prompted us to wrap up rather quickly, and almost immediately we were like, "Oh, what about this? What about
Yeah,
that?"
yeah. I just sort of realized there are a few things. So specifically, what I want to talk about, just to close the door on season one, is the wilderness part of the last episode. Because like Doom Coming is like I would say that the climax of the season, as far as that part of the plot
Yeah.
goes, and we did talk about that. But this is sort of the fallout from that, among other things. Um,
Yeah, some really eventful stuff happens as a result of Doom coming.
Yeah, and if we're gonna like, talk about season two eventually, like we're gonna have to get into some of what happened. So anyway, yeah, I wanted to make sure we address some of this stuff. Okay, so a couple of comments. So one thing I wanted to say, and this is honestly like partially my memory failing me. So we'll see when we watch season two, like how accurate my memory is about this. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about there's this Van and Thaisa scene where like Van basically reveals that, she
Hmm.
believes that like Lottie has some
Yeah.
kind of like supernatural abilities, and like she's like partially believing in, she had some kind of near death experience after the wolf attack, and like
Yeah.
she thought
So,
she saw something
mhm.
that was there, sort of like the it, I
Yeah, and
guess.
we sort of see that.
We do. They show us that perspective.
So yeah, of all the characters, Van at this point has seen the most with Lottie, in terms of some kind of supernatural connection.
Yeah,
Um, and she's in a relationship with perhaps the biggest skeptic of them all.
yeah,
Um,
definitely very committed
mhm.
skeptic
Yeah.
character. um and like the point of the scene is like, is this gonna be a problem? And Tate's like, no, and it like,
Huh.
I have
Yeah.
absolutely no objection to the scene. It's a good scene, blibbity blah. I just want to note it because I feel like something
Yeah.
weird happens in season two with that. Like, that thread that doesn't quite add up for me. So anyway, like at this point in season one, it makes sense. But I remember when we were doing the podcast in season two, like kind of getting lost in Van's like train of thought.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I just wanted to note that. Okay. Lottie kills a bear.
Well, I also can I
Oh,
can I piggyback on that and
please.
just say like that, and maybe we did allude to this earlier, but she is so skeptical, but then we also know she's got this the bad one
Yeah,
is bought in
that
and
isn't skeptical.
participating.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, there's definitely that. thing.
And so then the other
And that's the
hardcore
thing they pick up
skeptic,
with in season 2.
yeah, and the other hardcore skeptic at this point is Jackie.
Yes.
Other people are sort of like, well, I don't know how to explain this, but what's the harm?
Yeah.
Whereas Jackie is standing on the sideline being like, are you crazy? Like,
Yeah.
can you see, how do you not see what I see? Yeah, and sort of tied in with her whole hunger strike up to this point, and well, anyway, we all know where it's going, but
Yes.
yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Um yeah. Yeah, no, I want to talk about Jackie a bit more. But just before I get to that,
Sure.
um so Lottie kills a bear. That's a thing. She said that line, we won't be hungry much longer.
Hmm.
And then we have this like crazy scene where this bear comes up and like seemingly like bows down before her and offers itself as a sacrifice. And she stabs it and they eat the bear and stuff. So that's just a weird moment. I think like any kind of normal explanation for that feels weird to me, but on the other hand, like this episode is built around this big reveal at the end that not only did Lottie survive, but she emptied Travis's bank account and she presumably sent these people. And we know from season 2 the answer is yes, she sent these people to kidnap Natalie, for reasons that we don't understand as of the end of season 1.
Yeah.
So, in a way, I feel like they're building up the Lottie mythos to try to, like, add intrigue to the present day plot. So I feel like that's part of it, you know, because in season 2, like the vibe sort of changes with Lottie, and she actually like doesn't even participate in the first big cannibal hunt. Like because she gets beat up by Shauna for reasons that I'll complain about later. So um so anyway, but I wanted to note that because it's an interesting scene. Okay. So yeah, we have to talk about Jackie. Like I do think like Jackie's like latter season character turn is really well done. Like, I just think it's like such an interesting place that she gets to, and like, uh, like seeing that kind of character like go down this like, but also like it's like partially like she's just being like nihilistic and cruel, but like some of what she says is totally valid. Like I feel like she's the only one who really, I'm partially because she didn't participate, but like she really does like call them out for this doom coming thing and this like that they were about to like slit Travis's throat. And like even Travis himself doesn't seem to appreciate that. I remember that is something that was bothering me through season 2 when he has this thing with Lottie that's like sort of unclear, but there's some kind of
Yeah.
weird relationship that they develop that I feel like it's like now maybe it's that he was because he was on the shrooms.
Right.
Maybe it's just that he was so out of it that he didn't even realize that Lottie was instigating Shauna to slit his throat, but he does like totally play it off the next day to Natalie.
Yeah,
And
but in
so
this way that makes it clear that he really was disturbed by it.
yeah, I feel like he
And
should
then but
be.
then fast forward to the next episode, the first episode of season 2, and we just see he's on board
With
with
Lottie's
Lottie.
like weirdness, right? And then like and also what I feel should be relevant is that's the reason Javi ran away, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, he yes.
Like and so
But we're
like
not podcasting about the first episode of season 2.
oh I know, but I mean that that happened in the last episode and I'm just saying like in terms of like Jackie is the one who gets up and is like, "Yeah, are you really not going to acknowledge what you did last night? Like that was
Yeah.
fucked up." Like, and I do think she's right about this, and I think there is this like, like, oh man, it was the shrooms, and like what a rough night, and like they're not. they aren't really facing the
Yeah,
reality.
they aren't asking themselves what it might mean that they behaved that way,
Yeah.
and whether there's any reason to okay, so let's not let Misty anywhere near the food. They do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
But
Even though she didn't put them in the stew, it's not,
but she's the reason they're in the stew.
of course. Yes.
So, but and she could have stopped it and she didn't.
She could have said something. I mean, that's her
But
main
like
culpability.
the question of like, is there anything else we should examine here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't come up.
Yeah, yeah. And she's like, is this just what we do now? Like howl at the moon and have orgies and stuff? Like it's like they are ready to sort of dodge like responsibility for it
Just like forget
because
it. It was a bad night.
yeah,
Look,
they
everybody
were
did
on
some
the
things
shrooms.
they
We
regret.
all regret. Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, like I just appreciated that because I do feel like she's the only one who really speaks up about that. And I remember that being something that was just driving me crazy in season two. I just really wanted someone to,
But season two is a big fast forward.
it's true. It's months later, and I think that is probably relevant to the fact that they're not like still lingering on, the specific issues from that, aside from Jackie's death, which obviously is still an issue. But we'll talk about that later. Um, okay. So yeah, then we have this because she reveals basically that she read the journal and like she knows about the thing with Jeff and Shauna, and like they have this big fight, which I think is like just a great scene. Like you have to, it's a big moment. It's like it's the sort of definitive in terms of like they're both finally to an extent like being honest with each other in a way that they hadn't been for who knows how long. They had been friends. Like I mean, they're partially like maybe just being a little more hurtful than they would really want to be normally, but still like they're saying things that were kind of under the
Yeah.
um under like suppressed, I
Yeah, like
guess.
those worst thoughts that you have that you don't say out loud, and then
Yeah,
there's some truth on each side, but you wouldn't, yeah, in a normal confrontation, if you hadn't let it like bottle up inside, it
yeah,
wouldn't come out like this.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I really like that, like thing where like, how would you know? Like
yeah,
you're so wrapped up in you have no idea. Like
yeah,
I don't
like,
I don't even like soccer, which is like to me one of the greatest lines of the
yeah,
show because
it was.
it really puts things into perspective. They're on a team that is going to the national championships, and she doesn't like soccer.
Yeah, it's
I don't
amazing.
know. It's kind of mind blowing. But
Was Go ahead.
there's also the thing about Brown versus Rutgers, and
Hmm.
and Jackie's like, "Well, I didn't make you be my sidekick. That was your choice. Like, why are you blaming me for that?
Yeah,
Like,
and there's
you're the one who did shit behind my back. So it's like
right.
they both have valid points, I think.
Yeah, there's certainly truth to that. It's like there's comfort in being the follower of the the charismatic cool kid.
Yeah,
So like you don't get to step into that role, appreciate all the benefits of it, and then talk to me like this.
yeah.
But at the same time, this like you're so full of yourself, I'm surprised you even realize anyone else
Other people
exists.
exist.
It's
Yeah,
like, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
the Jackie we see in the pilot is so annoying. We've all seen that character, the self-absorbed cool girl who peaked in high school, as Shauna
that's what
points
she
out in
says.
this scene,
Yeah,
like you know that your best years are happening right now. Um so harsh.
yeah,
And also like, yeah, we've seen that stereotype and that is true of them.
yeah. But like, not to defend Jackie too much, but I think it is a mixed bag. Like, she is you know, appointed the sort of de facto like leader of the team, and there's this
She's the
thing.
captain. She's the team captain.
Yeah, and there's like a scene where someone says, anyway,
Well,
whatever.
yeah, there's the
Um,
episode in the pilot, the coach is like, "Do you know why I made you captain even though you're not the best
okay,
player, you're not the
that's what I have in
whatever?"
mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
I forgot she was it makes sense though. But anyway, with the scene where they're at the party and like there's about to be this like fight going
Yeah,
down,
and she breaks it
and
up.
she steps in and she's like, "We all need to like say something nice about each."
Yeah.
She
That's a
does
big thing in the
show
beginning. Yeah, it's like she's the
there's something
leader
there.
until they crash.
Yeah,
And then they talk about this earlier in the season. They've already developed this that she like when she rejects participation in the chores and all of this and she says something along the lines of, I'm not I don't want to play this Girl Scouts game or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah,
have any of these skills. I'm not
yeah,
interested in any of this. And um, there is this sort of like push pull between, well, it doesn't matter if this was the kind of thing you liked to do before. These are the things we have to do to survive, and you need to be a team player.
yeah,
And also this aspect of there are sometimes when it seems like you all are kind of getting a little bit too into this wilderness thing.
yeah,
But then again, you have to survive in this place, and that also involves psychologically and recreationally or whatever.
yeah,
Anyway.
yeah,
But
totally.
yeah, it's a full circle episode as season finales often are to, her total loss of clout from the moment that they crashed here, going
Yeah,
from being the captain to being the least useful member of the
right,
team.
right. And like, yeah, basically an outcast,
Yeah.
you know. Um, Somehow even more so than Misty.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. Well, Misty gets cred. I mean, as much as they hate her in this episode,
Yeah,
and they never really liked her to begin with, she still has a lot more survival
yeah.
knowledge.
Yeah, and I think they realize that. But yeah, that's just something I appreciate that, it is a stereotypical shallow character and like there is that element there, but she isn't that simple. Like
Yeah,
there
no,
is
she comes
some depth
around.
there.
Yeah.
And you kind of get to see that and going into season 2, like Shauna is still like coping with her death and their relationship and what it meant, and it's I don't know there it's like a big deal. So anyway, that's one of the reasons why.
Yeah, it's a codependency.
Yeah,
It's just that the script is completely flipped when they crash.
yeah, 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 so they have this big fight, and then Jackie's like, get out, and it's like, no.
Oh
So
my
she's like,
God,
all
the
right,
get out.
fine, I'll go out.
The get out is amazing, and it just really encapsulates her narcissism.
Yeah.
That it's like, how do you wow. The get out is the most wow to me of the whole thing.
Yeah,
In
it
an
is
intense way. I
crazy.
mean, you're laughing now and like I get that, but it's really intense.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No. The scene's intense. It's just the idea of it is kind of ridiculous. Like,
Mhm.
it's like, what? How do you? What? Like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, scoffing when you see it, but then especially when you know what's about to happen.
yeah, yeah. So she ends up going outside and basically, just sitting out there the whole night
Yeah,
when,
trying to start a fire. We see her like struggling to start
yeah,
a fire even.
yeah,
She does eventually get the
yeah,
fire started.
yeah,
We
and
get this scene. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say we get this scene in the night when Shauna's watching out the window and Thaisa is up there because Shauna and Thaisa sleep in the
Yep.
creepy attic. And Thaisa says, just go out and talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
And Shauna just goes to bed.
Yep. Yep, that's sort of the final moment where like something different maybe could have happened.
But and it's just, yeah, I feel like most people can relate to that experience of having gotten into a really bad argument with someone they love, and you're confronted with this moment where it's like, well, I could go and apologize and smooth this over,
Yeah.
or no, because why do I always have to be the one to bend? I mean, I assume
Yeah.
that that is sort of how she's
Yeah, yeah,
feeling.
yeah.
Like,
She doesn't say it,
if
but I
I
think
were
that
to
makes
go out
sense.
there, that would play into her whole worldview.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then we all know what happens.
Yeah, so as a result, Jackie freezes to death. We get this like death dream scene. They do something like this pretty I routinely is not the right word, but let's just say that they've done it, a couple of times at this point where we get this like idea of what they're seeing as they're dying, and
Yeah.
she imagines Shauna coming out and apologizing and going inside to the
You're the
cabin.
best friend I ever had.
Yeah, and like they're all there, and like it's like weird, and gradually, you see Laura Lee's there, and it's like, oh, okay, and then fucking cabin guy's there. Like, we've been
Which,
waiting for you, or whatever he says, this creepy ass thing, you know. Which like I tend to interpret as just like her idea of the cabin guy.
yeah, I think so. And so maybe it sort of makes sense that her vision of the cabin guy is this young, good-looking guy.
Yeah.
Because I always thought of cabin guy as older, kind of um uh what is the word I'm trying to think? A doomsday prepper kind of person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Kind of grizzled
Grizzled.
and and like one of these like wilderness types, like,
Yeah.
beard and
Yeah. But yeah, I noticed this time that as soon as she walks into the cabin, they're all arrayed in a circle, which, probably the first time I watched it, I didn't immediately think like that's weird.
hmm
Um, but this time I noticed also that Travis is in that group, and we know that he's not there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a Natalie and Travis sort of like
Hmm.
reconciliation scene, which we did kind of talk about.
Yeah.
That's happening, yeah, outside the cabin, and so
Yeah.
yeah, so it doesn't add up
Yeah. So
in
it's like
terms of what I'm
already a
seeing.
little hint.
Yeah, yeah, that there's something else going on. So yeah, and then then they react to that. I mean, especially Shauna, like it's a big moment. Um and then uh and then we end on this like scene with Lottie like offering the bear's heart as some kind of like sacrificial offering to the god of the wilderness or something. And she's like, she says this thing in French and English with that rhymes.
Yeah, yeah,
Versez le sang, mes beaux amis,
yeah.
and let the darkness set us free.
Yeah, that's how you know, like, there's nothing really about the wilderness that is sending the French, because there's no reason why it should rhyme. Although
Yeah.
Quebecois are quite bilingual.
Yeah. That is true. That is true. But yeah, just yeah, it's definitely Lottie doing that, right? She's not pretending to be possessed or anything.
No, no, that's just her.
It's different from the
Um,
seance
yeah.
scene. And yeah, Misty and Van are there. As well. And that's the thing they close on after we get this big reveal about Lottie basically having survived, having emptied the bank account, and sending the team to take Natalie. So anyway, I just wanted to say all that stuff. I think that's good. I don't know. Do you have any
Yeah.
other comments you want to make about that stuff before we
No, I mean, some of this we're
quit
gonna
this thing?
we're gonna pick up soon
Yeah,
after
yeah, yeah,
we
yeah. We'll be
get
back
into
after
season
season
two.
two, after we finish season two, just with some general thoughts about that season. I don't think we'll talk about every single scene because we kind of did that the first time,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah,
not
do that.
necessary. But it seems like an appropriate thing to do since we do have season 3 coming pretty soon. So anyway,
Yeah.
little addendum for you. Hope it was worth it. And I
Well,
think I'll
we had to
just
get it off our chest.
yeah, I think I'll just say like turn it over to old us because we already said buzz and the other things. So
Oh, that's what you're gonna do with
yeah, so I'll just cut
goodbye.
this in. I'll just
Okay.
cut this
All
in
right.
before that.
Okay, well
Um,
then, but
bu-
buzz,
buzz, buzz,
buzz, buzz.
buzz.